where some of these teams might end up as the next season. Because you got to remember that hopefully for the New Orleans Pelicans, they get Zion next season again. But they get Zion next season again. I've talked about Zion multiple times. I think that Zion can still be dominant, and he has a similar story with injuries and his diet as Joel Embiid does, which I did a video on, which I'll link. And then obviously the Clippers as well. The Clippers are getting should be getting Kawhi back. Kawhi hasn't played in a while, and so people have been counting the Clippers out because it's just been Paul George. But you got to remember that Paul George used to be one of like a great dominant player whenever he's played in Indiana and whenever he played with the Clippers for earlier. And then also they made it to the playoffs last year and the play-in this year with no Kawhi. And so I think getting Kawhi back, the Clippers can go to at least maybe a second round next playoffs. And obviously the Bucks as well. The Bucks, people were talking about it at the beginning of the season. The Bucks were injured, and the Bucks were losing almost every game because we were injured. We didn't have Middleton, we didn't have Drew. Some games we didn't have Giannis, and all the other fans were saying, look at the Bucks. They didn't deserve last championship. They're washed, all that sort of stuff. And all the Bucks fans were saying, don't worry, we're still the best team when healthy, and y'all will see when playoff time comes. Well, the same thing happened in playoffs that happened at the beginning of the season, unfortunately. Middleton got injured, and we didn't have our full roster, didn't have our full ammunition that we have in our roster, and that caused us to lose a Game 7. But it goes back to the same conversation we were having at the start of the season. When the Bucks are fully healthy, I fully believe that they are still the best team in the league when healthy, over the Warriors that just won the championship. And you can hold me to that. But it just depends on if they are healthy, which they just happen to have not been. But the last one I actually have on here for expectations of teams may surprise y'all. But actually the Nets. The Nets ended up getting swept this playoffs and did not do very good. However, we don't know what's going to happen with Kyrie. Apparently Kyrie and the Nets are still debating their contract. So we could see Kyrie leave because, he's not guaranteed to stay there next season. However, KD is there until 2024 or 2025, if I remember. It's a 4-year contract, if I remember, for KD. However, Kyrie can leave if he wants to, and Harden obviously already left. But Ben Simmons is on the Nets. Now, again, this goes back to recency bias. Ben Simmons had the terrible playoff run with the 76ers, sat out for the 76ers, and then sat out for the Nets. However, again, he was defensive player. He was up there for defensive player of the year a while back. Ben Simmons' defense will add a lot to the Nets, and I've said this before. Because the Nets are a team that sort of noticed the shifts that I've mentioned multiple times of moving the NBA to a further offensive game and less defensive game, and basically put all their eggs in that offensive basket. Let's get Harden, debated as one of the best shooting guards of all time, although I do like D-Wade more personally. Let's get Kyrie, pair him with KD. But they didn't really have any defense. They had some of the worst defensive ratings of any team because they had no defense. They were all offense. They wanted to outscore the other team as much as possible. And Ben Simmons adds a lot of defense to the Nets, which will help balance out their roster a little bit. And so while KD is putting up, 40 points, 30 points a night, like he can do, Ben Simmons can also have 2 or 3 blocks, or whatever the case may be. And that'll really help lock down a lot of their other formidable opponents like Jason Tatum, with the Celtics. You know, Giannis with the Bucks, Jimmy Butler with the Heat, and so on. And I think that Ben Simmons really will help the Nets go into at least the first round in the playoffs, um, and not get swept like they did this year. So, but we'll have to see what happens with Kyrie first.